go and get some hot tea.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Barsky, for all of you who don't know me already. I know some of you do. So anyway, as you see, everyone here, I'm sure you notice what I'm wearing and what you're surrounded by on these tables and chairs and everything here. So anyway, I've spent the past 18 years knitting over 100 of these sweaters. I couldn't bring every one of them with me. It would take 2 cars to do that. But I brought some of them that I thought that all of you would really like. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to tell you about some of them. I know all of you have there, you've seen me here wearing them, and you've asked me about them so many times. So here I'm going to start out by explaining them to you. So here I'm going to pick the first one up that I see here. What does this look like?
Baseball diamond.
Exactly. So this is a specific baseball diamond, and knowing that all of you live in Baltimore, most of you have probably lived a substantial part of your lives in Baltimore. So what stadium is this?
Royal Park at Camden Yards.
He's an expert on that.
Exactly. So I made this back in 2002. The previous year I had been to a baseball game and I was thinking, what sweater do I wear there? So I decided that in time for the next baseball season, I would knit a Camden Yards sweater and then wear it to a game, and then any game I went to thereafter. So I got to work on it. So here it is. And exactly.
Looks a little small for you, though.
Yes, I made it so many years ago. So here's one of the more recent ones I made. And it continues the sporting theme. So what big sporting event is coming up in a few weeks? Does anyone know?
I cheated. Yeah. It's ice skating.
Yes, ice skating's a part of it. The Olympics. Someone got it right. The Olympics. So the most beloved Olympic sport is?
Ice skating.
Exactly. So the reason why I made this was, number one, in honor of the Olympics, and number two, since I was going to New York recently, I gave a presentation in the world's largest knitting convention up in New York.
Really?
And in New York is the famous ice skating rink at Rockefeller Center. So I wanted to wear it in front of Rockefeller Center. I didn't go skating. The lines were too long for that, but at least I got a picture in front of it.
Good idea.
So how many of you have seen The Little Mermaid?
Oh,
Seen a photo.
Denmark?
Yeah, I know, but how many of you have seen it either as a movie or play?
Yeah.
Yes, I think most of you have. So anyway, one time when we were going and seeing a play of The Little Mermaid, I made this to wear to the play. We have a mermaid doll that we got when we were in Denmark, about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So
Yeah.
that took care of that.
These are all wool sweaters?
This one is made of acrylic. It's a very thick yarn, and since I only had 2 weeks to get it done before The Little Mermaid was being played, it was being shown, that's why I used thick yarn for it. And I also used thick yarn for another thing. Does anyone remember what happened in this past August that everyone was so excited about?
The eclipse.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So I got hundreds of requests from my fans online to make an eclipse sweater. And I only had 2 weeks to get that done. So I got to work on that, and in time for it, I made an eclipse sweater. And I wore it during the eclipse. I even took a selfie wearing it with the eclipse in the background, the way it appeared in Maryland. The sky didn't get completely dark. But that's good enough for me.
How long does it take to make each sweater approximately?
About a month,
Working on it every day or?
whenever I get time. So, to continue the outer space theme, this is one of the earlier ones I made.
Oh, I remember that. I was so impressed.
Oh, yeah, the
The
planet.
sleeve, yeah.
So some of the planets are on the back and some of them are on the front. Like as you see, the Jupiter is the main planet you can see here.
Oh,
And the sleeve too.
And then Saturn, and then that's the sun on the sleeve. When I was looking for a yarn to represent the sun, and I saw that, it's like, that has to be it.
Yellow,
So some people like these things, some people don't, but I personally think they're quite cute. So these are ants in an ant maze.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ants.
And ants.
No, I just
And to continue the insect theme,
Look at that.
here are,
Cicadas?
yes, cicadas.
Wow.
And there are exactly, because they come every 17 years, there are exactly 17 cicadas on this.
They are so noisy.
Now here's a kind of animal, it's not an insect, it's a little bigger, but just like cicadas, they do fly. They also swim and walk. What are these?
Oh,
Yes, ducks. This is a duck pond. This is one of my oldest sweaters. One of my favorites I ever made. Because of all the colors it has in it. I'm actually planning on redoing the top of it to fix it up in the coming year.
Sam, do you draw like a blueprint and go with that, or is it all in your mind?
It's all in my mind. I freehand everything. I don't use patterns or graphs. So to continue the bird theme, does anyone remember several weeks ago who came in here?
Bird?
Oh, yeah.
The Nature Center.
Nature
oh,
Center.
yeah.
And do you remember one of the birds they brought along?
They had owls,
An owl.
eagle, and
Yes, owls. So while they were holding up the owl for all to see, this was the sweater I was working on at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I made arrangements. I've known the owner of that nature center for quite a long time, and I made arrangements. She had actually told me one time if I knitted an owl sweater, I could take a picture next to one of their owls. The following week, I got this done, and I did.
Nice. Yeah, very nice.
Is that Irvin?
No, it's Carrie Murray, which is in the city. So here's another kind of animal I'm going to show you today. What do these look like? Llamas is a close guess. Something similar to llamas.
camels.
Llamas, camels, same family, but they're smaller, a smaller version of them.
News.
They're called alpacas.
Oh,
Alpacas are a source of quite a lot of yarn that people knit with.
Yeah.
It's very nice and soft and comfortable. And alpacas are actually quite a cute animal.
Yeah.
So there's an alpaca festival that takes place in November every year in Maryland. So in order to have something to wear to it, I made this sweater. It's made out of 100% alpaca yarn, and it, as you see, it has on it some alpacas.
It's a soft wool.
Exactly. It's very soft, very comfortable to wear.
Yeah.
So here's an animal that does not exist anymore, that did millions of years ago. Does that? Yes, dinosaurs.
Oh.
The way I got inspired to make this one was, my wife and I, we take an annual pilgrimage to Shenandoah National Park, and on the way there, there's this place that we pass. It's called Dinosaur Land, and you can go there. They have dinosaurs on the outside, many more on the inside. So one day when we were passing, it's like a dinosaur sweater. Why hadn't I thought of that before? So I committed myself very soon after to making a dinosaur sweater, and here it is.
pick your colors.
This yarn comes in lots of different colors, so I decided to make dinosaurs in a variety of different colors. I thought that would look nice. This yarn, I had some yellow, as you see, some red, some green, some multicolored ones, just to name a few, some orange, some purple.
When there's a borderline between colors, how is that handled? Is it like the yarn is knotted or something in the back?
No, what I do is while knitting, if I want to do one stitch in one color and then the next stitch in another color, I just cross the yarns together, it locks them together, and then knit the next stitch out of the next color, like filling in squares on a graph paper, but you have to do it in order.
So it's like a friction fit?
Yes.
Okay.
So, the place we were going to when we were past the dinosaur land, where we go, here's that place. This is called Shenandoah National Park. It's about 2 hours from here. My wife and I have gone there every year since we've been married. And the road that runs through is called Skyline Drive. It's a well-known road. And you get a very nice view of the mountains there that looks very much like this. And then on the back of it, I included a waterfall that you can hike down to. We actually have not for a very long time because it's like a very long hike, but this is what the waterfall looks like pretty much. That's one of our big tourist sites. Also in the state of Virginia is a place we've been to a few times. We went there very recently. This is called Colonial Williamsburg. This is the governor's palace. A couple of months ago, I gave a presentation and taught a class in Williamsburg. So, since I knew I was going down there at least a month in advance, I got to work and made a Williamsburg sweater. And the interesting story I have to tell about it is, I went outside the building to take a picture wearing it there, and one of the employees, the one specifically who works at the admission gate, recognized me because she's a big fan of mine, a follower on Instagram, and she was very excited to see me in the act of doing that. So she invited me in for a free tour of the facility. Here's the back of it, which has, this is what some of the other buildings in Colonial Williamsburg look like. And then there are little pictures of buildings on the sleeves. Speaking of people seeing me take pictures at the landmarks and getting excited about it, I had an experience this past summer. Does anyone recognize what this is?
Yeah, Hollywood.
It's the big sign on Hollywood Hill there.
Exactly. I had the idea of doing the Hollywood sign on a sweater for quite a long time. And since I knew I was going there, last year I got it done. And then it's the Hollywood sign. So we parked outside the Hollywood sign and got out of the car. And then it just happened that at that moment, there was a tour bus of tourists from all over the world. And they had recognized me from Instagram. So they said, "Are you the one who knits the sweaters?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "You're going to get a very special treat because you're going to see me take a picture in front of this landmark wearing it." And we ended up taking a group picture all together with all the tourists. On the same trip, we went to the Hollywood sign. We also went to another city about 4 hours driving away from there.
San Francisco.
Not San Francisco, it's in a different state. So, what city is known for the dice?
In Las Vegas.
Yes, Las Vegas. So, on the same trip, we also went to Las Vegas. And in honor of that trip, I also made a Las Vegas sweater. So I put different well-known buildings in Las Vegas on the sweater. As you
Including the Eiffel Tower.
yes. Many people who don't know what this is, I'll say, what city has both the Eiffel Tower and the Statue of Liberty?
Paris.
Las Vegas, in miniature, not in
Yeah,
scale.
the Eiffel Tower of Las Vegas is about half the height of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And we went to the top of it when we were there this past summer. And this sweater I made several years before, but people kept telling me, if you go to Vegas, you have to wear this there. So, I didn't think of Vegas when I made this, but that's what they told me.
Hold it up, wait a minute.
Vegas.
And speaking of the Eiffel Tower, how many of you have been to Paris? Quite a lot of you have been to, I know you have, but quite a lot of you have been to Paris or in this room. I haven't even gotten to go to Paris with this one myself. I've posed in front of quite a lot of fake Eiffel Towers with this, including the one in Vegas. One of these days I'll get with this sweater to the real Paris. I'm making a plan for it. So, thinking of tall structures, not only the ones that are known for tourism, but the ones we see every day also are inspiration for sweaters.
Electric towers.
These are power lines.
Power line. I didn't know what you called them.
Yes. Here's another famous tower that I've included on a sweater. And I was just there a couple of weeks ago for the world's largest knitting convention, which took place at this location. So, where does everyone celebrate on the East Coast for New Year's?
Times
Square, Manhattan.
Yes. So here's the tower from which the ball drops.
Oh,
The ball drops on New Year's Eve. You know the ball drops, right? Times Square. Yeah.
So,
oh, I see.
now crossing the Atlantic Ocean once again.
Yeah.
So, does anyone recognize what this is?
That's in England.
Yes, Stonehenge. We've all been to Stonehenge together.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Now to a different continent. Exactly 5 years to today, we were all on my wife and I and her, three of us were on a plane.
I'm his mother-in-law. That's what it's called.
Yes. So this is my yes, you know this is my mother-in-law. We all know that. So the three of us were on a plane to on this exact day, and we were flying to the Far East. And one of the cities we went to on this trip was, yes, Hong Kong. You got it right. You guessed it. So here's a sweater of the skyline of Hong Kong.
How did you do that?
And now to the other side of that very same continent, which Hong Kong can be found on. What's the favorite country of all of us in this room?
Israel.
Yes. So I've made 6 sweaters of landmarks in Israel, and here's one of them. Here's the best known one.
Who knows what that is?
Wow.
That's the Western
The
Wall.
wall. Exactly.
Western Wall.
The Western Wall. Wait, can you hold on for one?
Sure.
Thanks. Beautiful.
right?
Great. Amazing. Wow.
And where else do so many of us like to go when we're in Israel? To cool down.
Swim.
Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea, that's correct. So
Oh, the
here's
Dead
a sweater of the Dead Sea.
Wow.
You can't drown in the Dead Sea.
Exactly. It's the safest place in the world to swim. And now to think more of Judaica stuff. One of my early ideas when I started doing this, in addition to making landmarks, nature scenery, and all kinds of things like that, was also to do Jewish holidays.
Hey.
So one of the first holidays I made a sweater for, and then later another and another, so now I have 3 of them for this holiday is...
Hanukkah.
Yeah, and I see you got Israeli flags on the reverse.
And you won't be able to see it today, but because you need pitch darkness for it, but the flames on the candles here are made of a yarn that glows in the dark.
Wow.
And here's one for another Jewish holiday. Does anyone recognize what this is?
Seder. Seder.
Seder.
Passover.
Passover, takeout.
Yes, exactly. So here's the Seder plate, and here's the...
Matzah. Shmurah matzah.
Yeah, Shmurah.
And here's one I made, not officially for this holiday, but I wear it for this purpose. What's the holiday that's taking place today?
Tu B'Shvat.
Tu B'Shvat.
So I wear this just as a regular sweater, but I've also made it unofficially into my Tu B'Shvat sweater. And if you've ever wondered if I've made anything for my wife, here's the answer to that. First of all, for me, here's another Jewish holiday. Does anyone know which holiday I would naturally would have made this one for?
Shavuot.
But what holiday do we associate with bees and rams and apples, as you see over here? So this, yes, you're correct. So this is my Rosh Hashanah sweater. And so here's the one I made for Deborah that matches it. This is a Rosh Hashanah dress.
Very nice.
And now time for a secular holiday I made a sweater for.
Halloween.
Oh.
What do you see on the bottom of here?
Apples. Apples.
They're not apples. Yes, pumpkins.
Oh, pumpkins.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, so that's correct. It's for Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
So this is my Thanksgiving sweater. And this one I made to represent the city where I was born. And I also wear it on a particular holiday every year. And you can tell by what you can see on the top of it what holiday this is for. What building does this look like?
Capitol,
Yes, the Capitol.
4th of July.
Yes, and what do you see on the back of it?
The monument.
Yes, the Washington Monument.
And fireworks.
Yes, the fireworks tells you it's for the 4th of July. And now back to Baltimore. Does anyone know which place this is in Baltimore? This is a landmark in Baltimore, a place where many people go in the spring.
No. Oh, Sherwood.
Yes, Sherwood Gardens. Yay!
Ooh,
Yeah, they have tulips. All sorts of flowers.
Now, time for a movie. I'm going to show you a sweater that I made to represent a popular movie. And can anyone guess what this is?
Oh my gosh.
Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Wow.
Wizard of Oz.
I made it when we went to a play of The Wizard of Oz several years ago to wear to that play. I couldn't even get the sleeves done in time for the play, so I had to wear it as a vest. But now it has its sleeves.
Wow.
Wizard of Oz. That's cute.
And finally, if anyone wonders what I was doing with my life before I got into knitting, the answer is I was in college studying for a particular career. It didn't work out as I had planned, but I made something in memory of those days. What does this look like?
Turn
Like
around.
a skeleton. A skeleton.
Yes, a skeleton, and what else do you see on it?
Kidneys,
Kidneys and,
lungs.
Medical.
yes, all kinds of parts of the body. So, that's, yes, so that, you get the idea that I was studying for something that was medical related. The answer is I was studying to be a nurse before that fell through, and I ended up doing something else with my life, which happened to be this knitting.
Sam, were you into art in your life growing up? How did you know you could do this?
Yes, I always did the typical art a child did when I was growing up. Like I would draw pictures with either crayons or markers or ballpoint pens. But it's like nothing like that indicates someone is going to grow up to be an artist. It's like I discovered this pretty much by accident after I learned how to knit and I was experimenting. So, one more. Does anyone notice what I am wearing?
Yes, all your sweaters there.
All your sweaters.
All of you.
Not all, right?
Some of them anyway.
So these are
Some of them.
34 of
Oh my
my sweaters that are either, I could call them my favorites, or the ones that I could easily miniaturize onto here. These are miniatures of some of my favorite sweaters that I've made in my life. I had made, this is sweater number 100 lifetime, and since I knew 100 was coming up, I knew it had to be something that would really stand out as being different from the rest. And I was asking people for some suggestions, and I can't remember if someone else suggested it or if I thought of it myself, but I had the idea of doing a sweater of sweaters,
Yeah, best of.
and I figured out that I could fit 34 of them onto it in this size. This is a reasonable size, so I had to figure out 65 of them that would not be on here, and that was a very hard decision to make. I actually had to make the decision as this was going on, was a work in progress. So I started off with the back, as you see, and then I actually started off with the sleeves. I put my two recent ones on the sleeves, and then I did the back, and then I did the front, and went all the way to the top like this. And then in September, the Sunday before Labor Day of 2016, that's the day I got this finished.
Do you do this by hand or with a knitting machine?
By hand. Yeah. So now that I've finished, I've gone through all the sweaters I brought along. Anyone here can feel free to ask me any questions. Does anyone have any questions?
So you make the sweaters, you make, so what you showed us is things for yourself and things for Deborah. Could somebody commission you to make one for themselves?
I wish I could. The truth is it takes me a month to make one, and given the amount of work that goes into it, it's not practical for me to be a human sweater mill. But I'm working on finding someone to mass produce them, and I've had a lot of standing offers for that, but I don't want to sign any contracts without a lawyer who can look them over first.
I'm just thinking, women spend hundreds of dollars for a nice top or sweater. If somebody would spend $500 for a sweater, would that be worth it?
Yes, if it's in the, given the amount of work it takes, it would have to be a 4-digit number if I did it by hand, but even that's not practical for me to do. I really need a mass producer. Yeah, so any more questions? I learned to knit from the owners of 2 local yarn shops. The first one I went to was on Falls Road. It still exists in a different location under different owners. It's called Woolworks. That's where I had my first knitting lesson, and then I learned how to make a sweater by knitting from another shop called Woolstock, which just closed down about 6 months ago. That was in Glendon. It's a place I very much miss. It was a staple of the Baltimore knitting community.
How much wool do you think over the years we've actually gone through?
That would be a good question. It would probably be the sweaters themselves, in terms of volume. They fill up like plastic boxes. I store them in about 8 plastic boxes about this big. So it's like it would be the comparable amounts of yarn.
And how long ago did you start? I might have missed that.
I started knitting almost 19 years ago from today, in March 1999 to be exact.
I got all the buildings of your sweater.
Yeah. What about it?
Identify each building.
These are, each of these is a sweater that I made sometime in the past, within the past 18 years.
Sam? So, of all the sweaters on the table, we took 34 of them, and
Do you have your sweaters insured?
Miniature sweatshirts.
Sir?
Are your
Sir?
sweaters insured?
You really can't put a price on them because each of them is one of a kind. So even if something happened that if I were to be given a lump sum of money, that wouldn't instantly replace them.
in other words, if you had $100,000 to give him, it still wouldn't be worth as much as those sweaters are worth.
All it would be is money. So any more questions?
Very practical question.
No, I have no question for him. I just remind him if he's over. Yes. You have, okay.
Okay, we'll be a few more minutes.
No, I need enough. Instead of the dining room.
So
How do you keep little things from eating the wool on your sweaters?
I've never had a problem with it. I've never had a problem with moths before, and people have asked me, but I've just never had a problem with them.
Remember? And Bob.
Sam, you're very talented.
Thank
Very,
you.
very talented.
So I'm going to wrap this up in a moment because it looks like this space is needed by someone else. So
Dinner.
we're going to go out in the lobby in a moment, and anyone who wants can come out in the lobby and continue to ask questions. Thank you, everyone.
And we have cake. We have cake for my mom's birthday, everyone, and cookies in the lobby. So I invite you all outside to join in my mother's birthday celebration.
Thank you. Thank you.
And what we're going to do is do.
So what is it? 27?
It's my birthday.
84. I'm going to be 84 today. I was
No, 85.
80. No, I was 83.
Okay, everybody.
85.
I think you are mistaken. Well, she says 85. But
Okay, everyone.